how to get better at cloud interviews.
Uh,
Hey, what's up guys, GK here. So this is a new collaboration series that I and Raj have done it together. So Raj is an amazing person and he's been working on cloud along with me, and we both worked in the same company before. So we have come up with 20 questions that were most commonly asked in our videos. We have answered pretty much all the questions with our perspective. So this is a two-part series. The first part is going to be on this channel. The second part is going to be on his channel. So go to his channel and watch the second part, and I'm going to give the link of the video in the description.
Hey Raj, how's it going?
Good, JK. How about you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining this video and doing collaboration with me. It's amazing, and it's awesome for my viewers, especially and subscribers, to learn from you, and because they would like to understand from you and from this collaboration, how at least we can give them some perspective about a lot of questions that they have and a lot of misconceptions. So given our experience, I think we will do our best so that at least from this video they're going to get a good outcome. So without further ado, before I go into questions, could you please give some background about yourself?
Hi, guys and girls. My name is Raj. I have a YouTube channel called Agent of Change. So currently, I'm a senior solutions architect working at AWS. So just a fun fact, before joining AWS, I used to be actually in mainframe. So I switched my career from mainframe to cloud. And then after getting some experience in cloud, I joined AWS. And before joining AWS, I was a distinguished architect in a Fortune top 20 company. But yeah, really excited to talk to your viewers, and hopefully we help them out in their cloud journey as well.
Yep.
All
Thanks,
right,
Raj.
let's
Thank
get
you.
started.
Yep. So one question, Raj, I think this is the question that even you see in your channel, right? A lot of people ask, even in my channel as well. Is it necessary to have cloud experience to get into cloud jobs? So what is your take on that?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So the answer is it depends, right? So the easiest way to get into cloud is through your own company. Like if your own company is migrating to cloud, then it's easier because you can reach out to the team, to the manager, build some relationship, and get into that and learn that cloud. So for internal move, it is not that necessary to have cloud experience. But for external jobs, it is a little difficult, right? Because you're going to go through interview process, and then it depends on the other people who are also trying for the same position. So there you will face competition, so it will be beneficial to have some experience. But regardless, you should have a couple of cloud certifications. But yeah, that's my take. What about you, GK? What do you think?
No, I think I completely agree with you, especially if you are joining in the internal company, into a cloud team. And if you have learned, then it's an easy navigation for people, especially inside the company. So I think the challenge would be when you are going outside of the company, especially when you're switching your whole domain into a cloud and without the prior experience, it's a challenge. But having said that, we have seen a lot of people doing that. So it's not like difficult or it's not impossible to do it, but
Right.
it's going to take some time. And it's
Right.
just like how you're going to use your past experience and put that as a cloud experience. And that's where, again, we all know, right? The first question is a tough question, like tell about yourself in the past as what have you worked in the cloud. But once you have passed that question, the rest of the questions would be technical. So if you can satisfy interviewer with your technical skills, I think it would be easier for anybody to join.
Excellent. Excellent. All right.
So yeah, so the next question is, again, which service would you have to specifically start with?
Yeah. So this is a
I
good
know
question.
you have said that in your videos, but could you please say that again?
But definitely. So this is a really trick question, right? Because all the
Yeah.
clouds, I know you like GCP, I like AWS, um, have like hundreds of services. So my take is on the path I took, and I believe you took as well, is pick couple services from these three domains. One is compute, next is network, next is storage, right? So I'll speak for AWS, and then you can speak for GCP. For AWS, for compute, you absolutely have to know EC2. You should start with there because that's the building block for a lot of projects. So EC2, and then if you have capacity, you can learn container or serverless. And then for storage, you should absolutely have some knowledge of database, right? Because I was doing some searching on some jobs to do research for these collabs. And then I saw like for database, there are like 200,000 jobs, irrespective of any cloud, have database requirement.
Amazing.
And then like DevOps, machine learning, all that stuff, they're way behind. So you should
Right.
definitely learn at least one SQL database, one NoSQL database, right?
Right.
And you have to know the block storage that's going to be attached to the EC2 instances.
Yes.
And then coming to the network, so it's like a tricky area because people don't like to dive deep on networking.
For people who don't have experience.
Yeah. Same for me. When I came into the cloud, I had no experience on network. But if you're going through the certifications, you should at least know like what is VPC, what is subnet, how would you set up a 3-tier application in a VPC subnet, how should the security groups look like? And that's where I would start. And then I'll branch out to other areas as per your interest. What do you think?
No, I think I completely agree with you again there. Before I became or before I got into the Google Cloud, obviously we both were working on AWS. And for any cloud service provider, and this is common for Azure or any Alibaba or anything right out there, so you'll always start with compute because that's the basic fundamental resource or service.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you have experience on compute like EC2 or Google Compute Engine, and then you can get into other areas like database or any other specific services that you would like to learn, and S3 and stuff. But yeah, compute, buckets, databases, and some part of networking is very crucial to start with. And then you can get into serverless and elastic beanstalk or PaaS solutions. But so one good thing though, which I want to point out here is with respect to GCP, is in AWS you have to choose a path and then you have to start with associate exam, and then you have to get into professional, right? Like, I have done SysOps and DevOps. But in GCP, if you want to directly choose a path of DevOps, you can directly write that exam. So you don't have to write associate exam. So people who would like to just have their niche area of machine learning, they can directly go for machine learning. Or if they're interested in networking or security, they can go with that without writing any associate exam. So that's a good thing that I've seen in GCP. But again, it's up to their choice. Whatever they do, like we both agree that they have to start with the basic compute services.
Yeah. So one thing though, so AWS recently changed it. Probably
Oh, they did.
what
Right.
GCP is doing. So now you don't have to get the associate anymore to go for professional.
That's the good news, so that people can save money for that.
Yeah, people can save money, definitely. Okay, GK, I'm going to ask you the next question, okay? Because I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
People are confused, like, what is the job for a cloud architect? So can you tell the viewers, like, what's your day look like as a cloud architect?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And it entirely depends on job role from company to company. And especially in the current company where I'm working, we have a lot of applications that are going into cloud. So obviously my job on day-to-day basis my priority would be to migrate those applications to AWS and some applications to GCP. So it again depends on whether the application is greenfield or brownfield. Most of these applications are brownfield. So I would have to sit with the development teams and operation teams and come up with an architecture that satisfy all your WAF, especially for AWS, and also in Google Cloud as well. There is a pretty good documentation on how you have to move each service to cloud. For example, if you're using a VM in on-prem, how would you have to do that? So it's a basic lift and shift any enterprise would go through, and then refactoring and stuff. So yeah, so that's where my time goes most of the time. And sometimes, rarely, I would get an opportunity to do POC. For example, if there is a new service that our developers would not know, if it is SQS or PubSub or anything, we have to show them like how this service would behave or what this service is about. So that's the biggest challenge for the developers too, as you might have faced in past as well. They don't have experience on these services, so they would be always having that RabbitMQ mindset or non-managed services mindset. So that's where I help them. So that's my day-to-day activity most of the time. So architecting the applications and making sure that applications perform well in the cloud within the WAF framework, also saving the cost.
Gotcha. Yep. That.
So how about yours? I know
I totally agree with you.
I think your roles would be slightly different, I guess.
A little bit, but most of the responsibilities are similar to what you said. So only thing is now as part of my new role, so I'm like a specialist on serverless and container now. So I only would talk about, dive deep into those areas. So I will go meet a customer, and then they will talk about their existing projects that they're running on their data center. They will give me the design, the challenges, and the goals. And then I would give them an architecture on containers or serverless, talk about pros, cons, and then, yeah, like I have to do some proof of concept sometimes, show them how it looks like, give them infrastructure as code, and then run knowledge sharing sessions to bring their knowledge level up.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And so how often do you face some tough challenges, or like, for example, you might have seen this in your company day to day,
Yeah.
like, you know, they would say, I don't want to use this managed service. You know, I just want to go with lift and shift. So how often do you see that, and how do you overcome those issues when you are talking to your customers or to your developers?
Yeah, so we do face it because we see two spectrum. One is sometimes people just want to go to a service because it's like shiny or it's like super trendy. Like we all know those services, but the application doesn't fit there, right? But you cannot just say, no, 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 it's not good, right? You have to show them that why it's not appropriate. So generally for any architecture, I go by the 5 pillars of AWS Well Architected Framework, and then I try to prioritize them. So we'll put a link of the AWS Well Architected Framework, but the couple of the important pillars are performance, security, cost optimization, right? So you have to choose what you are trying to get the most, right? So if you are trying to make the application the most secure possible, you have to sacrifice on cost a little bit, right? So depending on that, the choices of the services will change. So yeah, I sit down with them, try to understand their prioritization, and then try to come to a design that will suit them. Also, it's not always, okay, this design is best for you.
Right.
It doesn't matter if they don't have the skill set, right? Let's say nothing against mainframe, right? I used to work in mainframe. So let's say they're modernizing a mainframe, and then you give them a design with like serverless, like Lambda API gateway, Python, all that stuff, right? So, and the project timeline is like 4 months or something. So it is not feasible, right? So even if the design is great, they cannot do it. So you have to go phase by phase. Maybe first phase, they have to go EC2 and regular database. Then by doing that, they would know about the cloud, right? And then on the next phase, they could use that knowledge to modernize a little bit more. Maybe they can go serverless, NoSQL database, all that stuff.
So basically first lift and shift and then modernizing or refactoring the code. So that would be, I think, the natural migration path for most of the applications that are on-premise, right?
That's right.
And so the other question, which I would, before I go into the other question, so one thing I would like to, if you were to, you know, what are the takeaways for our viewers, especially on the cloud architecture? And I think if I have to summarize few, and then you can add more to that.
Yeah.
But basically, they have to have overall understanding of the WAF. Basically, they have to have understanding of network security is the main component, and you know, obviously the services. They have to know which service would fit in for the right thing. And anything else, Raj? So do you think they should learn, or how do they can get into this cloud architecture?
Yeah, I mean, whenever any company tries to go to cloud, security is always comes up. Like security, they have to internally deal with their security group, right? So they have to make sure they know how to secure their application, and then be prepared to show proof of concept from the security perspective. How to get into the architecture? I guess there are a lot of good material. I think that's also a part of the problem, because when we started our cloud journey, there are only very few materials, so we would read those. But now it's like millions of articles. So one link for AWS, I would say, is go to the reference architecture guide for AWS. We have a lot of quick starts, a lot of good reference architectures of a lot of common applications. So what I do is I would think of how can I architect let's say a YouTube, right, or WhatsApp. And then I try to put that in a white paper, like a piece of paper or whiteboard, and then go check the solution and try to see why they did something certain way, why I did this way, and then learn from that.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. So I think, yeah, like you said, system design is the most important for a cloud architecture. So for people who have a lot of experience in IT and who want to get into cloud architecture, you know, they have to see how they can design the system especially like architecture of messaging system, or or an event-based system, and then how they can migrate that to cloud. I think that's where they would have to practice a lot, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So coming to the next question, how much money do you spend learning cloud? So usually this is like common question, and we have a lot of people from India as well, as you know.
Yeah.
And it's very expensive sometimes. And there are a lot of courses out there that they have created graduation programs for cloud. so,
Uh,
can we help our viewers to reduce their cost of learning?
Yeah, dude. So seriously, sometimes I see these posts in Facebook groups that they are selling their AWS account for some money, and then the courses are ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
Dude, like me and GK, because we did not spend any money learning. So both AWS, GCP, or any other cloud had amazing free material available. So the
Right.
best way to get started into the cloud, at least for AWS, is going through the practitioner path. If you don't know anything about cloud and you want to get into cloud, so we have a certification called practitioner. You do not need to get the certification. Sometimes people think if I get the certification, people think I am like a noob or like just a beginner. They don't want to show that, right? So you don't need to get the certification. We will give you the link below where you can go and just grab the material from AWS itself free of charge. So you can study that. And then we have a bunch of material for free for Solutions Architect Associate as well. The max amount of money I spent was just $10 to get one certification course from Ryan Kunenberg, a cloud guru. Like I got my certification like 4.5, 5 years back. That's the only thing I spent on. And AWS has free tier. So you open an account, you do everything in free tier, you can set up alerts. Like every time if your bill is gonna charge you something, if it is going out of free tier, AWS says, hey, this is not covered under free tier. You don't have to do it, but almost every service you can practice in free tier. And when your free tier is exhausted, you can open another account. Please do not buy AWS account from other people. It makes no sense. It's all free. Even if it lets you enter your credit card number, it doesn't charge you if you stay in the free tier.
Right.
GCP, I'm interested to know.
No, I think I completely agree with you. I mean, you don't have to spend money. I think this is where a lot of people struggle a lot, is they do not do the due diligence of like, what is the study guide? Because AWS and GCP, they have clearly laid out in their study guide how you want to prepare for the exam. So they
Right.
have step by step pretty much, right? So I think it's natural for a lot of people to just go for some course straight away without looking into the study content, and then how we can go into the documentation of AWS or GCP and learn from the documentation, because that would give them the real hands-on. And because, as you know, right, documentation is the core. Even if you join a company after getting certified, you have to know how to go through documentation.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a lot. And especially for GCP as well, like you said, GCP gives $300 credit.
Oh, okay. That's
More
good.
than enough. Straight away. You just have a Gmail account, you get $300.
Oh,
But
wow. Okay.
yeah, the only caveat is, of course, you have to put your credit card, and we
Yeah.
have seen people who are struggling with the debit cards, especially from India.
Okay.
But credit card is mandatory. If not, the account is not activated.
Mm.
But yeah, $300 is more than enough to get all the certifications.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is like in the beginning, you don't need anything. You can just get started. Once you reach a certain level and you know which path you want to go deep on, let's say machine learning or maybe container, serverless, then maybe you can decide on a course and then do it. But in the beginning, you do not need to buy any specific course.
Yeah.
For the
Even
first.
if you want to go into specialization, like your course you have, it doesn't cost more than $10-15.
Yeah.
And there are programs who are like charging $200, $300, which is like,
my God. That's like robbery, dude. That's like bank robbery.
yeah.
$300 for a course, Jesus.
Yeah. So, no, I agree with you. I think the best way to learn is doing themselves, getting a free console access, practicing, and then figuring it out like which part they want to choose, and then specifically go with that niche if they have any course on that, right? So that's what you would recommend.
Definitely.
Okay, cool.
So GK, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How did you get into cloud?
Okay, so this is way back in 2015, Raj. I was working at Computer Associates, and I was working as a The funny thing is working as a automated QA engineer. I was working on Selenium and a little bit of core Java and stuff.
Mm,
And that's when I was curiously looking into a team called Platform Team. They were trying to get into cloud, AWS.
mm,
And so that's when I first heard the term AWS. And then I was also working on the DevOps tools and stuff, Ansible and those things. So when I joined the next company, I was not into cloud much. I was working more on DevOps tools. But in the current company, as when I was working in India, that's when I got into the cloud and I did my first CSOP certification. And
mhm.
then eventually I did DevOps certification in AWS, because AWS is the starting point for most of them, right? Because that's the first cloud.
Right, right.
And then after I've done those two, I got an opportunity to work on GCP,
Mhm.
and that's when I've learned GCP. I think, yeah, I mean, we were discussing this before too. Unless you have an opportunity to work on it, it's little difficult to
Yeah,
get into that cloud unless you're doing trainings and you want to do and learn and teach people. That's a completely different story.
right.
But yeah, that's when I got into AWS. I think 2015 June I started more working on AWS, and since then I've been working on as a cloud architect. How about you, Raj?
Yeah, so I was actually in mainframe. So I worked in mainframe for almost like 9 years. So I was in a company, and then they were thinking about modernization, and then they were just floating the idea of cloud. And then I came across, I was just Googling, I came across AWS, and then I got super hooked up into it because I like to do my own experiments and stuff. And with mainframe, it's very difficult to do personal projects, right? So I just tried it. Like I just went in, created a free account and tried EC2, and there was a server running, and I was like super pumped about it. Like in mainframe, you have to do so much to get your code deployed and running, get a server, all that stuff. And there in like 5 minutes, I have EC2 running. Then I put some pictures in S3. They have some like quick starts, put your picture in S3 and then retrieve it and stuff. And I
You can
was
put your sample HTML and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
sample HTML page, yeah, static website. So then I just started studying, man. I just started studying, started doing personal projects in the work.
Yeah.
It was not going so fast. Like they were thinking about modernization, but it's a lot that when you try to migrate a huge enterprise applications. So I got my certification, and then internally I reached out, that company, Fortune Top 20 company, they were building a cloud organization. This is what, 4 or 5 years back. Uh,
Right.
and then I reached out to them, met some relationship with those guys, showed them what I did in
Mhm.
my personal projects and what I
Yeah.
do if there's an opportunity for me. And then fortunately, they believed in me. We had interviews and stuff. It went well, and that's how I got in. And then I
Yeah,
learned.
I think at that time, Raj, like you were saying, there were very less people, and the good thing that you did was like you went into hands-on mode straight away, and
Mhm.
you were ready for them to just demonstrate your skills and get into that. So that's where I think that's the important takeaway for people who are watching this video, right? As
Yeah,
soon as you see new
definitely.
technology, just try to get hands-on and practice that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, sometimes I feel, yeah, people get put too much time into just theory, right? They would just read, but then unless you do it, then it's like it's very difficult, right? You won't
Yeah,
understand. And in an interview, it comes out. Like if you just read theory, you always have this fear in your mind.
yeah,
What if they ask me, what happens if you do this? What happens if you do that, right? Because if you just read the stuff, you won't know the answer to that. So it's very important to get hands on and do stuff.
right. No, I agree. And yeah, so is it too late to learn the cloud? So that's another question. Because
Mm,
there are a lot of people, our subscribers especially, who
yeah,
are who have huge, like say my mainframes experience last 10 years, 15 years,
right.
or some people who are doing manual QA for last 10, 15 years. So for them, if they want to get into cloud, so
Mhm.
is it too late for them?
Not at all, not at all. So I'll give you two pieces of data, right? Not just anecdotal, what I think, but based on data. So I was just looking in LinkedIn. There are like 211,000 jobs on cloud just in LinkedIn on United States, right?
Okay.
That's a huge number. And
Yep.
second piece of data is look at your company. Like most
Yep.
of our viewers are like already working
Yep.
and stuff, right?
Right.
Look at your company and see how many projects are in the cloud and how many projects yet to go in the cloud. So you
Yeah.
will see not many companies have more than 50% in the cloud. Like
Right.
I'm not talking about the startups, all the enterprises. So
Right.
it is just the beginning of the
Right.
journey. Cloud
Right.
is here to stay.
Yeah.
So get started. It's not even in the middle phase yet. It's just the early adoption phase, because if you see in the enterprises, it's just getting started. But get started though. Don't just do analysis paralysis. Like we both have talked, me and GK
Right.
both spoke about this multiple times.
Right.
Don't just think about which cloud is better, this, that. Get
Yeah.
started. What's
No.
your
Yep.
take, GK?
No, yeah. So I agree with you. I echo the same thing. Is that it's nothing is late. I mean, there are people who started late. Even now, we know a lot of people who recently started to learn cloud, and they're doing awesome, right? So it's all about confidence, and it's all about how you can portray yourself by learning the technology and getting hands-on. So I think that that's when, like you said, it is still starting. A lot of companies need a lot of cloud engineers who can migrate their applications to cloud,
Right,
especially big enterprises, and startups out there as well, because any startup would naturally start on cloud. They would not go for a data center.
right.
So it is starting, and this is the best time. I mean, I would say like within 1 or 2 years, just get into the cloud as soon as possible before there will be a lot of people, like, the bubble will blast, and then
Yeah.
you'll be at the you'll be in the competition. So it is the time, and I think it's never too late. I agree with you. Yep.
Yeah, and also I think it is tough time for everyone right now with all
Mm,
the human
yeah,
malware and everything that's going on. Um, so take this time to study up a little bit more if possible, because you do not have the commuting time, right? So
yeah,
like I am saving time on
mm,
my commute. So I've
yeah.
been trying to learn a little bit more on some of the other areas. So yeah, try to utilize this time.
Absolutely. No, I agree. This is the best time to get certifications if anybody
Right.
can uh, spend their time and reduce the commute.
Yeah. So GK, I'm going to ask you the next question, right?
Sure. Yep.
Uh, because I believe neither you came from a coding background for traditional coding, and
Yep.
neither nor me. I was
Right.
coding in mainframe, but not in any
Right.
cloud language.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So is it necessary, or do I need to learn coding to get into cloud?
Mm, yeah. So I have answered this in one of my videos, Raj.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people who are a little paranoid about coding, they should not be too much worried about this part and bogged down that, I have to learn coding to get into cloud, because you're going to spend a lot of time learning that. And as you and I know, right, when we go
Right,
for interviews, they're not going to ask you about the algorithms.
right.
You're not a software developer in cloud most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what I would recommend is, at least you should have hands-on experience on Linux. That's my take on this.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. Along with that, have scripting knowledge and have Python, because Python is one programming language. If you learn today, it's going to help you in future as well. Like, if you want to go to machine learning or data science anywhere, it's the
Right,
one language that can fit into multiple technologies.
right.
So it would not hurt to learn these things, and it will definitely help. So I would, if people can spend some time, but that's the best thing, to learn Python and shell scripting at least to start with,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then learn the services. And as you know, right, you are a serverless guru. So when you're writing Lambda functions, either you have to write in Node or you have to write in Python, right? If you don't know both, then you're struggling a bit.
Well, Lambda changed a lot till we worked on it last time, so now it supports any language.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I
What do you think?
agree. Yeah, I agree totally. One thing I would add is,
Uh-huh.
yeah, like infrastructure as code. You
Yeah,
should learn, like either AWS, you should learn CloudFormation, and Google
yeah,
has their own infrastructure as code. And that is not your regular coding. It's just how to
mm,
provision infrastructure, right?
mm,
So I definitely recommend doing that. And also, don't think like coding, you have to like go crazy about it, right? So
mm.
when GK is talking about Python, it's much easier than learning Java. It helps you a lot. It will help out your career a lot. All right.
So yeah, to add on to that, Raj, one thing here, exception here, is for current developers
Mm.
who are software developer
Mm-hmm.
who want to go to cloud.
Yeah.
So for them, it would be like, we have discussed this in our videos, I guess, but for
Right.
them, it would be important that they carry the same programming language that they have, their Java microservices or Spring or whatever, and
Right.
then work more on the cloud services. And for them, they can still be a cloud developer. They don't have to ditch their development and go into some other thing, right? So that's they can
Yeah.
do. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean,
Because,
so Yeah, so this is a good segue. So there are a lot of software developers who think they have to go through a lot of hoops to get into cloud to
Yeah.
be a cloud developer. Not really.
Yeah.
You did the hard part. You learned the coding, and then now you are doing coding. All you need to do is learn how to run your code and test your code in cloud, which is the way easier part than learning the coding itself, right? So
Yeah.
think of it like a cricket. If you know how to bat and bowl in like gully cricket,
Yeah.
then you put on a big cricket ground. All you need to know is like, okay, these are the bigger boundary and stuff, but all the skill still applies.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think especially for the developers who are currently working as a software developer,
Yeah,
for them, what we're trying to say is they don't have to ditch that completely and start learning Linux or anything, because
right,
there's a huge demand for developers in cloud. If they
right,
can tell that, I'm a cloud developer, I have done a migration to the cloud, or, I know how to do microservices in cloud, I know how to use Elastic Beanstalk or any other PaaS solution in Google Cloud and stuff. So I
right,
think that there's still an opportunity for them, right? They don't have to ditch that.
definitely.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, coming to the next question, Raj. So, which cloud certification should anybody start first? The first thing, or can they just go with anything?
So this is my recommendation, and this is the logical path of progression.
Mm-hmm.
So for AWS, if you are super fresh, like you don't know anything about cloud, you should go the cloud practitioner route. So go at least study the cloud practitioner material. And then if you want, get the cloud practitioner certification, and then get solutions architect associate, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This two gets your foundation ready. It tells you what are the services, what are the basic building blocks, all that stuff. And then it's up to you. If you like DevOps, go for DevOps professional. If you're an architect, go for solutions architect professional. If you are in ML, go for machine learning specialty side. If you want to do Alexa, go for Alexa specialty, database specialty, etc. So that's the path I would highly recommend, and it's like the most logical. How about GCP, GK?
Yeah, so GCP, it has one associate, which is which have taken Google Cloud Certified Associate exam, and then they have the professional exams. Everything else is professional. So they have DevOps, they have networking, security, and I think professional cloud architect, right? So they have one architecture profession as well. Yeah, so anybody who would like to start with the basic certification, they can go with associate. But
Okay.
if there is a person who is experienced already,
Mhm.
he or she would like to get into architecture right away,
Mhm.
yeah, then just go for the professional architect exam. So that's what I would recommend. But like like you said,
Mhm.
person who is starting fresh in the GCP first time,
Yeah.
it's always good to start with associate.
Okay.
Um, but if a person is already working as a developer,
Mhm.
then I would recommend them to go with developer right away,
Mhm.
because that way they will save some money.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, GK. I'm gonna ask you the next question. This is also a very common question. Which cloud should people start with?
I think we both addressed this in our videos, which
Yeah.
cloud to start with.
Yeah.
We gave our analysis on that, but people should not be paralyzed with that analysis.
Right.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, they can start with anything. They cannot go wrong with any cloud. I mean, that's what I think. But honestly, people should restrict themselves between AWS, GCP, and Azure right now. I
Mhm.
mean, I would not personally go into OCI or Alibaba
Mhm.
yet if
Mhm.
you want to get into cloud, because these three are anyways they're leading the market, and it's easy for you to get into that cloud and get a job. But yes, like I've said in my previous video, that if you
Yeah.
are going into AWS, there are a lot of people in that. So obviously there will be competition, but there are a lot of jobs as well.
Right.
But in GCP, and I was talking to one of my friend actually.
Yeah.
So, there is a company that they have put three sections: AWS, GCP, and Azure,
Okay.
and they were hiring. I think it's off campus or something. And AWS has a wait time of 45 minutes,
Okay.
and GCP has 15 minutes, and Azure has around 15 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, so there are a lot of people in AWS because obviously it's a old cloud. You will have a lot of
Yeah.
people, and
Mhm.
even GCP eventually will get into that mode, and Azure will also get into that mode. But having said that, we both currently we know AWS pretty much, and then we are also learning different clouds, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, stick to one cloud to start with
Mhm.
instead of jumping around, and get experience in that. if you're spending a time on one cloud, I would say stick to that for some time. Don't get confused, and now don't stop AWS and start learning GCP. But
Right.
yeah, that's what I would think, Raj. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you should get started at one cloud, stick to it, learn it, and mark my words, in future all companies will have multiple clouds,
Yeah,
because
sure. For sure.
if you look at your current company, like as a
Yeah.
history repeats itself, you are never going to see just one technology in a company, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say a company started with mainframe, then Java J2EE came, then service oriented architecture, all the new architecture. You will not see that the new architecture took over everything. There
Yeah.
is a mix of everything, like, because variety is the spice of life. So even
True.
if one company is sticking with one cloud, down the line they will think, you know what, I want to see other clouds, I want to see what advantages it brings, maybe I want to have a backup plan. So they will have multiple
Yeah.
clouds. So just start with one, and then you
Exactly.
grow.
And then eventually you can get into other clouds. And pretty much all the clouds are very similar, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if you learn AWS, it won't take much time to learn GCP.
that's right.
In
Yeah,
future. Even for the same with Azure as well, the interface will change, but you
yeah,
have compute, you have serverless functions, you
yeah,
have storage. And
yeah,
yeah, to add to what you said, Raj, I think, like you said, every cloud will obviously get into their niche at some point.
right.
Like AWS, nobody can beat AWS in compute currently, right? The amount of compute they have, spot instance and stuff. So GCP has their own niche in the terms of machine learning and data science part.
Mhm.
So Azure has their own DevOps and other stuff. So I think, like you said, yeah, you can start with one and then eventually get into multiple clouds, but multi-cloud will be the future. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
So the next one, how to get better at cloud interviews.
Uh, so cloud interview is not like something special kind of interview. Like they are interviews, right? So
Yeah.
there are two parts to it. One is the technical part, and next is the general interviewing skill, right?
Yep.
So what I did, so actually GK and I did a lot of brainstorming together before our interviews and stuff. So when I was going through my AWS interviews, I would actually practice with GK, right? If you remember those days, we'll talk about architecture.
Find the questions that we did.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the only way to get better, to practice. So even if it sounds silly, like just say the answers out loud in your room or wherever, right? Because as you say, you will discover that some stuff is not that smooth, right?
Yeah.
So just, there will be questions which you don't know in interview, and then there will be questions that you know.
Yeah.
Always maximize on the questions that you know. It's like again, going back to cricket. If you get an easy ball, make sure you hit a 4 or a 6 on those, right? And
Yeah.
then, yeah, just practice. Like another tip I have is any company that you are going to interview for, go to Glassdoor and get all the questions from there, right? All the questions, and then put them in a spreadsheet, and then try to research those, and then practice it through a friend or to yourself, Google
Yeah.
the answers, all that stuff. And yeah, that's those are a couple tips that I follow. What do you think, GK?
No, I agree with you. I think people should just consider it as any other interview. If people are getting into the cloud for the first time,
Mhm.
obviously, when you're going into new technology, even some point we have gone into new technology, and you have also attended the cloud interview first time.
Right,
So there will be some nervousness. Obviously, you will not be as confident as now, right?
right,
Um, but yeah, the best tip is to go through Glassdoor questions, go through the interviews and stuff, and then if you can do mock interview by yourself.
right,
And I think you addressed this in one of your videos as well. I think it is better to understand what the company needs for the
right.
cloud,
Mhm.
and then do your due diligence background on that, and then focus more on that services if you want to be smart and then get into that, because cloud is huge and you cannot learn every other service. And I
Correct.
don't think even companies would ask all the services. There's an expectation from them to what they want. So yeah, I think just do mock interviews, I guess, and then get all the questions that you need from internet, do a lot of research,
Mhm.
and especially practice a lot.
Yeah, and I will add one more thing. So I take
Yeah,
I take actually decent number of interviews from
great,
AWS.
great.
So it's not necessary, like you saying, GK, to learn all the services. It's impossible, and we realize that. We hire people even without cloud experience, but you have to know the stuff that you are saying you know, right? So two things. One is sometimes I would ask someone that, hey, what is your area of expertise? And they would not give me any, right? Because they would think that, oh, I don't want to go deep in that area, right? But that's not the right approach, right? If you are coming in as a technical role, either as architect, DevOps architect, engineer, you have to have some area of expertise, right? Number two, the area of expertise you are telling me, you have to know it, right? Like it doesn't have to be cloud. If you say that, hey, I'm really good at storage, right? So you have to know your storage stuff. You have to know the SAN, NAS, DAS, right? RAID configuration, all that stuff, right? So, so yeah, don't think that you have to be mastering all the cloud services. But the thing you do say to the interviewer, I'm sure GK takes a lot of interviews too. We will go deep on it, right? Because you have to know if you really know it or not.
Yeah, I think it's okay to fail as well. Just you have to add that. And I initially also I failed in one interview. I remember when I learned in 2015 again. It was some company in Bombay. I was just attending interviews. So that was okay. One hobby that I always had. Whenever I go into new technology, I just go for interviews. I know I don't want to get into that company. It is just like for the practice. You know, I just want to gather all the questions that they would ask. I'm not sure if it is ethical or unethical. That's a different discussion. But I failed one interview and then I have learned a lot from that. So that's when I would brush up my skills. So I think failing is part of the whole process. So I don't think anybody, even LinkedIn, I guess LinkedIn or Twitter founder, he failed a lot of interviews with
Definitely.
So it's common.
Thank you so much for watching part 1, and for continuation of part 2 and other 10 questions, so go to Raj's channel and let us know in the comments what you think about it. Thank you. Bye.